Bishop. Call the meeting to order. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Otter, can I have the call on the roll, please?
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Norris, Ms. Thies,
Here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Otter. Just for the record, Councilman Norris will be arriving shortly. So he should be here momentarily.
You know, if you would, just tell him it cost $1 a county person for being late.
All right,
All right, sir.
we can do that. Moving on, we have first reading by summary reference, proposed ordinances and resolutions. First one up is ROC 2021-009, ordinance establishing sex and violent crime offender fees and fund. It's a joint ordinance, which is 2021-02. The next one is ROC 2021-007, lit PSAP. That's related to salary ordinances 2021-03, 2021-04, and 2021-05. The request is to delete one supervisor position, add a regular dispatcher position, and add 3 assistant supervisor stipends at $500 each. Next is ROC 2021-008, reassessment. That's salary ordinance 2021-06. And the request is to increase Peterboa salaries to $150 per day. Before we move on to public comment, any questions about any of those requests? The proposed ordinances and resolutions on the first reading? And I will note that Councilman Norris is now joined us in the meeting. Moving on, public comment. As of the meeting start time, there was no public comment that had come in through email, so there will be no public comment today. Next, we have communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at this time?
I just wanted to inform you all that got the 2019 annual report posted on Gateways, and you can view it there at your leisure.
I have sent you all links to that earlier today.
Any other communications from elected officials or other officials or agencies of the county? Having none, move on to reports from committees. There are none. Next, ordinances relating to appropriations. First up, we have the ordinance establishing the sex and violent offender fees and fund.
Good evening, Council. My name is Derek Bell, Vigo County Sheriff's Office. I have with me John Burns, Special Deputy with Vigo County Sheriff's Office, who is over our sex offender, violent offender registry program. So he's kind of the brains of the operations here when it comes to this ordinance. Any questions you guys may have, we'd be happy to answer.
If everyone would recall, this was discussed at one of our meetings last month. So I think it was discussed in great detail at that time. Does anyone have any questions based upon that conversation or anything that they've learned on their own since that meeting?
Nope.
I'd like to ask a question. Do you see any consequence or downside to raising the fee on your end, or what potentially could come of that?
I do not, as far as raising those fees and gaining compliance. Among a number of similar counties in population to Vigo County, and many of those even with less offenders, I calculate that on average it appears as though the compliance rate is 88.75%, so it doesn't seem like there would be an issue. I have a question.
Councilman Thompson.
Do the counties around us have this?
Yes, they do. We have several offenders that are multi-jurisdictional registrants, so they may work here and live in Clay County, or they may live here and work in Clay County, so on and so forth. Those fees are collected by Clay, by Vermilion, by Park, and Sullivan.
They are, okay.
If I could just add to, well, we don't have the exact numbers of the statute. It seems like we're in the minority, don't. It seems like
We are.
majority.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes.
John, when you get sex offenders in this community, do you contact them to notify them that they will be obligated to pay this fee? And if they do not pay, what happens?
As far as the contacting of sex offenders, it would depend on by which way they come into our community. They are pre-registered by the Department of Corrections, so if they've been in prison, then they've already been notified about the fee, that it is in the law, and that they may be required to pay it. If they come from another county, the most common issue I've had with that is offenders coming in trying to give me money, and I can't take it. As far as notifying offenders who currently reside here in Vigo County, I had planned to do a mass mailing and notify them and give them the opportunity to be aware, so that they had notice that there would be a fee charged. As far as enforcement, I don't anticipate non-compliance to be a large issue. There are a number in the minority of certain offenders who would be homeless or destitute that I would be absolutely willing to work with on that. But if there were to be, for example, an offender who simply refuses to pay the fee, the implication in Code 1188 is that the failure to pay a fee cannot be used as a defense against failure to register. So if they absolutely will not pay the fee, then it's clearly intentional, then they don't register, and that's punishable by Indiana Code. So I believe that between all of the devices in Indiana Code 1188, it maintains itself as far as its enforcement.
Just, so the fee we're establishing here, is it the same statewide, or is it according to population?
It's set forth in Indiana Code 1188. It is $50 annually for each registrant, and there is a $5 address change fee, and it is the same throughout the state.
Throughout the state. Thank you. I yield.
I think the only concern I had, you kind of addressed it earlier. I think you said it was 88.75% compliance for those counties that do have this fee in place.
On average, yeah. Some are higher.
Do you know, is that comparable to what their compliance rate was prior to having a fee in place? Do you have any idea?
I may have misled when I spoke about the compliance rate. I was speaking specifically as to the compliance of paying the fee. As
Okay.
for their compliance with the registry, I didn't look at that. I was specifically looking at whether or not they're paying the fee, so I apologize.
That's all right. Maybe I misunderstood you. I think that was just my concern, is what this does for compliance overall as far as registering. if that deters offenders from registering or not.
Mr. President, oops.
I don't know that it would deter, I mean, the rounding, I mean, it's less than $5 a month, and, I know plenty of them have Amazon, Prime, but, for example, as far as our failure to register cases have gone, at least I can vouch for my tenure, is that we've been very good at obtaining those warrant requests and everything like that. We have a 100% conviction rate on any warrant that we've made an arrest on for those. The courts haven't had an issue with anything that we've done. As far as the registration fees, it would just be a matter of them being non-compliant by not paying the fee, to which the law states that there is no defense there. So I don't anticipate that there would be an issue. I believe that most of the offenders would be able to pay it. A large number of them actually have lived or worked in other counties, and they've had to pay it there, and they haven't had issues.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes.
If somebody moves into the county, pays his fee and so forth, then he moves out of the county into another county, does he have to pay another $50 fee and re-register, or does he get credit for having paid? What happens then?
Well, if he moved out of Vigo County, then there would not be a fee associated with that. It would be up to whatever county he moved to charge him that fee. If they
Okay, but if he moves here, then he got to pay another fee.
If he's moved here, then he would have to pay his $50 fee for the calendar year that he did.
And he has to pay it, like if he moves in September, he got to pay $50 anyway. Is it September to September or calendar year?
In the code and what we've done, we use calendar years.
Okay, thank you.
To further address that, sorry, it wouldn't be a matter of you have to pay it right now or I'm going to send you to jail. I mean, if it was September and it needs to be paid that year, there's going to be, I'm going to allow them time for compliance. That's primarily our goal, is to gain compliance of these individuals. We're not trying to, fill dead space in the jail with them or anything like that.
Well, you have a kind face. I thought you
Well,
would.
thank you.
At least the upper half is kind.
What we've talked about is possibly having like a 90-day.
Grace
It's not set in
period.
stone yet, but possibly
Yeah.
like a 90-day, 6-month possibly, but some type of fair and consistent time frame where if they haven't paid their fee, it's not like the next day, like John said, we're coming out hunting down, or we're trying to get a warrant for the arrest type thing, or violating them. They will have a period of time, a reasonable amount of time to get the fee paid, so it's not that day or the next day that we're looking for payment.
Sounds good. Any additional comments or questions from council? Thank you. Appreciate it. Up next, we have the 3 salary ordinances related to ROC 2021-007 lit PSAP. And that was the requests from dispatch, county dispatch.
Good evening. Vicki Oster, Vigo County 911 Director. This is Sarah Holbert, my Assistant Director. What we have in dispatch is I have an open supervisor position that I cannot fill because the people that have enough seniority or the experience to take that position would lose money in taking it by going back to the base pay. So what I would like to do is just get rid, I have 3 full-time supervisors now, 1 for each shift, but when they're gone, then I don't have anyone else to take over the shift. So what I'd like to do is take the supervisor position and put it back as a regular dispatch position, and the difference in the funds from what the supervisor was paid and the dispatcher would be paid, and then have 3 stipends of $500 each that I could apply to basically make an assistant supervisor to be in charge when my supervisor is not there.
And this is something, Vicki, that we've talked about, you and I have talked about in the past, and I know it's been a long-standing issue you've had within the dispatch center of getting people that are tenured and qualified to take that just because of the position it puts them in if they do take that position, and something was to occur where they're no longer in that position, correct?
Right. Yeah, I have people that no longer want to be in a position, but they don't want to lose the pay. And, you know, in dispatch, I have people that's been there, I have people that's been there, this will be 26 years, and it goes down to 10. And then after that, it basically is 3 and under. So the people that have the experience already make more money than what it would be taking that because they were grandfathered in. And the people that have less than 4 years' experience there should not be a supervisor. So that's where I'm at in getting someone to take the position.
So essentially, these assistant supervisors step up in the place of a supervisor when they're absent,
Yes,
whether day off, vacation, or whatever the case may be.
yes. So I would at least have someone in charge, and I could, compensate them. So the difference in the salary from the supervisor and the dispatcher would cover the cost of the 3 stipends. So I wouldn't have to have any additional money to do that.
Do you believe that the $500 would be attractive enough for those individuals?
Well, I was hoping to have more, but if I made it more, then they were going to be making more than some of my supervisors, so I couldn't do that.
That would be tough. So how much more would a supervisor make at this point if these stipends were granted to the assistant supervisors?
Well, the people that I would be offering these positions to are some of the people that are grandfathered in and have the time, so they make more than one of my supervisors right now. Because he has been here 5 years.
Sure.
And he's in under the new pay, so he doesn't make as much as my other 2 supervisors. So they already make more than he does now anyway. But it's very difficult when you have people calling in on whatever shift they're calling in on, and they have a problem with a dispatcher, and they ask to speak to a supervisor, and there's none there.
Are you guys fully staffed now?
Uh,
Personnel-wise?
I hired 4 new dispatchers, which made us 1 down because I had to fire 1 dispatcher. And one of my 4 that I just hired has resigned the position already. So now I'm down 2, but I am at 23. But I've got 4 people in training right now. So basically, I can't use them until they're able to get out on their own. So I'm like 19.
Any additional
working the weekend.
additional comments or questions, council?
Vicki, do you think that's because we're not paying enough money?
I think that has a lot to do with it, especially if the minimum wage goes up, because my dispatchers will be making a minimal amount over that.
Okay. Let's
So,
talk
I
about.
mean, it's a combination of things. It's a hard job. It's a stressful job. A lot of people don't like to take on that much responsibility. It's one of those things that if you hire young people, they tend to be more playful and they don't last as long. If you hire older people, they tend to be longer in the training period. So it's, you know, it's definitely a certain personality that can do that position, and not everyone can do it. So there's a multitude of reasons why people don't last. But pay is definitely a part of it.
Is that the biggest problem, do you think?
I think the last time, when I first took this position in 2019, and I first put out for a job opening, I had 200 job applicants. The last one that I just did, where we hired these 4 people, there was 45.
Okay.
How does the pay here, is it comparable to elsewhere? I mean, other counties or?
I can send you some things.
Yeah.
I tried to get, I have a few places, some places don't like to tell you what they pay. You know, they just don't like to share that information.
I was just curious.
I tried to get places that were comparable to our size in area and dispatchers. And, you know, there's,
Well, when time permits,
yeah, I have those. I can send it to you.
thank you. Just curious.
And we also got named first responders last year. We got, the governor signed into effect that we are now first responders.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I can't do anything about, you know, where he falls at in the county's pay grade. And if it were up to me, all of my supervisors would make the same amount of money. They would be all paid the same. But right now, 2 of those people already make more than he does anyway. I'm sorry? I'm sure. So I get told all the time that it's not worth it for him to be a supervisor.
Any additional comments or questions? So the first salary ordinance 03 is the request to delete the supervisor position. 04 is to add a regular dispatch position. Then 05 is to add the assistant supervisor stipends at 500 each, just so that we're clear for later. Just kind of rolled everything into one, so just so everybody's clear on what each of those salary ordinances involve. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have salary ordinance 2021-06, ROC 2021-008, reassessment.
Council members, Council President, thank you for entertaining this request. I'm Kevin Gardner with the County Assessor. I'm assuming that you got the sheet that was laid out on what the request is, so I guess at this point I just would entertain any questions that you've got.
The information should be on page 8 in our booklets.
I'd like to state that we started this year, 2021 year, with, it's a 5-member board, and we started with 4 because we had a vacancy. The commissioners did commit another one to that position, which was a realtor. When the realtor got the schedule of the hearings that we're going to have. They resigned. They said that they can't give up that much time. They didn't say it was directly related to the pay. They just said that they can't give up that much time because they are an active role. They can't say it's directly related to pay. I don't know. I don't know how that would be handled. But the problem we got is with it still being a 5-member board, if they can't fill at least one of those other vacancies, if I have one person that can't make it, then we don't have a quorum. So we've got to tell all those taxpayers that day that they've just got to be rescheduled. I just don't think that's fair to the taxpayers. If we drop it down to 3, then if we lose one, we still have a quorum. We can still have our hearings. I also contacted the other counties. Out of the 92 counties, I had 36 that responded, and I was trying to get what they pay the PWO members in their counties to try to see if there was some correlation between parcel count, number of hearings, something along those lines. The numbers are actually all over the board. Howard County, who has 47,000 parcels, so a little less than us, they pay $100 and $150. It's $150 if you've got a level 2 or higher. I'll just skip through a couple of them. Decatur, they've got 18,000 parcels, so we're a lot lower parcel count, but they pay $200 for a regular member and $300 if you've got a level 2 or higher. Allen County just pays $200 across the board, and they've got 158,000 parcels. So I really can't make a correlation between parcel count and hearings. I can say that most of them that were on the lower end of the spectrum had stated in their response that they only had 2 or 3 hearing days per year. I think I had stated in the documentation I had submitted some of the information historically about what we do. I also, in my spreadsheet, I added a little bit more information which you don't have, but I'll read it real quick. In 2015, the county had 707 appeals. 20% of those appeals were handled informally. In 2020, we had none because we couldn't because of COVID. But those hearings we're starting to set up right now. We've got, in the next 2 weeks, we'll have 8 days. Then we're going to need another 4 days to do the informal information. That's where I'm coming up with the 12. My estimate is that going forward in future years, I'd like to get that down to under 10. You'll never get it much lower than that because you've got repeat offenders that regardless of what their assessment is, they're going to file an appeal. You've got the people that buy in the tax sales that they're going to file an appeal no matter what. You've got a lot of the lords that do all of the apartments, they're going to file appeals. So we're never going to get much lower than that, and that's why I'm making the request. I don't know that it's going to help us keep a board, but I think it's a more reasonable number. I think the current pay that they get was set, I know it was well before me, so it's been over 10 to 15 years with no change, end of every year.
Any questions from council?
Mr. President, I would have to say, since Kevin has been doing the assessor's office, I mean, it has gotten far more efficient than it has been in recent times. And Kevin, I really commend you for that. This is an extraordinarily good job.
I thank you, but I have to give the credit to my staff. They do all of the hard work. I just help them along. When you allow your staff to do what they're supposed to do, you can get a lot more done.
Well, it's working very well.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's half. It's a half day. Actually, I think it's 3.5 or less. Yes, I can.
With council members?
You can have the copy I got here, and then if you want to make them copies,
Okay,
you can give it to them later.
okay. Thank you.
did bring up a half-day part because currently at the $100 a day, if they work half a day, they only got 50. So it's already set up now to where if it's a half day, they only get paid half fee.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was, if it was set at a half, or was it set at $50? So if we didn't change that, there would be a problem. So that's kind of where I wanted to make sure that we were checking off all the boxes.
And one last thing I'd like to add, I know a lot of times it's your preference that all of this stuff is handled at budget time in the previous year. I did bring this up at budget time in the previous year, but I brought it up with also requesting that new full-time position for my field position. That was granted. I don't know that this was ever discussed in an effect to where it was denied or accepted. I think it was just something that kind of fell through the cracks. I just wanted to let you know I did bring this up last year, and I just think it's something that's kind of fell through.
When do you think you'll resolve that number of board members?
That's actually up to the commissioners and the county attorney now. Like I said, I spoke with them earlier today when they had the commissioners meeting, and they understand that it's an issue and they're going to see what they can do. We are okay for our hearings next week because I had a communication with the 3 members today, and they're all going to be available. So regardless who has got them as the appointment, they've still been appointed, so I can still have my hearings, and there'll be 3 of them there. So we're good for at least the next week.
Anything further? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Great information. Appreciate it. Yes, I just want to make sure and a second by Councilman Thompson. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
May adjourned. Thank you.